Hello friends, welcome back to my floor. I thought that this would be a good opportunity for you to see some of the artwork that I've done in my past. I have some of my childhood artwork and some goodies that I can share with you. I have a box. You can hear it opening. First of all, digging through memories would not be complete unless you first got to see baby me. This is me at like 2 years old. There are just all sorts of things in this box that have nothing to do with art whatsoever. Yes, science fair participant ribbon. This is being a millennial 101. If you got anything, you got a participation ribbon. But I also have like little baby shoes and then some kind of like gross things too. Like my mother saved all of my baby teeth. They're in here. Dare I? I think I have to. Oh no, this isn't my baby teeth. Aw, this is the hair from my first haircut. It looks gross, but it's just these very little fine baby hairs. I can see why my mom wanted to save something like that. But in a similar vein, my mother also saved the hair from my first major haircut. This is weird, but also fascinating. And it's still really soft. Wow, I had really soft hair. I also can't believe how brown it was. My hair's like black now. Is this a look? And that was back when I was like 8 years old or something, where I had my first major haircut. So if you can imagine me with hair pretty much all the way down my back and then cutting it into like a very short bob. But yeah, there's some stuff here that I can't wait to share with you. I think I was about 6 years old when I made this, and it's like a collage of a lady. She's wearing a very cool patterned shirt. I think these red spots are supposed to be like earrings, like dangly earrings. She's in a room that has art on the walls, naturally. I'm a little curious as to what I was going for here. Is it a crystal ball, or is it like one of those papasan chairs? So I'm gonna put this in the pile of things that maybe I could try to recreate. Okay, so next up is, I used to custom make my own like inside panels, like the inserts that you would put inside the 3-ring binder I would take to school, and this is from 8th grade, and I have like pictures of my best friends from that year taped to it and a bunch of stickers and stuff like that. This is a little portrait that I did of a Native American girl doll that I had when I was a kid. I thought that this could be a contender for something that I make. You can see I made it in 2002. My name was Liz in those days. I just really like this drawing. Like I didn't do half a bad job, honestly, as like a, 12, 13-year-old whenever this was. This sun reminds me of like those tribal suns that people would have tattooed around their belly buttons in the 90s. So I thought it may be of interest to me to try to recreate this and maybe even color it in. That goes onto the pile as well. All right, so this stuff back in, it had to have been 2010 or 2011. I was a really big fan of Nerdfighteria at the time, and I remember John Green was talking about something he wanted to develop for his son Henry that was like a cookbook made for kids, and this was when Henry was like a little kid, and I was part of like a lot of Nerdfighteria groups online, and somebody was looking for someone to do some illustrations for this book to surprise Henry as a present, I guess, for his birthday. So I did all of these food drawings. So I must have been like, I don't know, maybe 20 years old when I did these, maybe 21. They're all just like cute food illustrations of fun little creative snacks you can make with your kids. Then in this, there's several pictures in this. This is from, I was like 19 or 20. I just had this notepad. I think I had like take this to work and draw on it in my spare time, but I did all of these like sort of like faceless figures in different poses, and I thought that was pretty cool. Throw that on the maybe pile as well. This. Good gravy. Okay, so I think this was age 14 or age 15 kind of like doodle page that I did that's got some, edgy drawings on it. Like, first of all, we gotta have that one crying eyeball. There's a chain going across the page that's made out of that like funky S shape that we all used to draw in school. Oh, I was practicing drawing books. I like this doodle, actually. That's really cool. Man, some of these are deep. like the feather that weighs more than the rock. This one of the girl, and she's like falling out of this picture frame, and inside is a very lovely scene. Outside, everything's sort of like crumbling around her, and she's falling out of it. I have no body, I have no mind, I have no grip. I cannot find a blindfold here to shield my eyes from blazing moonlight from the skies. I am the goddess moon girl, and I can feel your warmth, for I am so cold here on the moon. I need you to touch me now. So moody. Oh my goodness. So this is a thing that I still do occasionally to this day, where if I just have a page and I need to doodle and I don't know what I want to draw, I will do pages like this, where you just draw lines in different directions crossing over one another, and then fill in the shapes within those shapes over and over and over again. It's a very fun meditative activity, and like I said, it's good for when you don't know what to draw, and at the end you get like these crazy pages that are just absolutely filled with lines. I think it would be fun to do an experiment like this in color sometime. Oh, okay, so I'm covering her name here because for privacy's sake, I don't want to like out her, but this was my best friend in middle school, and I did her portrait. And then this is what was behind it. If you guys have seen the movie Holes, this is Max Cash, who was an actor that was in that movie, and he played the character of Zigzag, and I had a huge crush on him. I paused the DVD on my TV and I just did like a portrait of that, and it turned out so good. I was like really into drawing portraits when I was around the ages of 14, 15, which I guess is sort of the birthplace of why I'm such a big fan of portraiture now. And I had a real knack for it, but I drew my celebrity crushes. And my friends. Oh my god. There's so much that I haven't even shown to you. I have a lot of really good contenders. Like Sun Girl definitely goes on the pile because I really like that. I'm sort of less excited about doing this right now because I kind of do this all the time anyway, where I draw people in different poses for some of my figure studies, so I feel like it would be a little redundant. I am kind of interested, however, in trying to do a collage piece that sort of like mimics this, I guess. The only thing is that I'm sort of basing it on the interpretation of how adult me sees what 6-year-old me tried to create, and it's just like this waving lady in a room, so it might be a little bit boring, I'm not really sure. But I love some of the colors that I use. Like I think I used like metallic colored pencils on the carpet and stuff like that, so that's kind of rad. The only other one that I thought was halfway decent and I thought could make a really cool illustration was from this doodle page where the girl is sort of like falling out of the picture frame and everything's crumbling around her. It might be kind of fun to revisit that sort of like edgy teen mindset that I had back in those days. Ooh, it's so hard to choose. Between these two, it's very hard to choose. I do like Sun Girl, and I do like Falling Girl. I might have to do both. And of course I have to keep them out as reference. Aw, I'm excited though now. I am. It's gonna be kind of like revisiting my childhood. Should I try doing this one too? Oh no, her hair's coming off. Oh my gosh, I have to be careful. This is like 25 years old. I want to make sure that it doesn't like disintegrate in my hands. I love collage. I love collage. It's too many decisions to make. Ah. You like that box? Aw, you're sweet. You're standing on my past right now. You're so lovey-dovey. So for the first illustration I'm going to attempt, I chose Dangling Girl. And I just bought this, this is a render sketchbook. I've seen some other people online use this, and I have some alcohol markers that I've had in my collection for years that I just haven't touched. I bought this book because I heard that it's like no show through, so you can use alcohol markers and they wouldn't bleed through the pages. So I think that I'm actually going to finally bust this open. We'll do our first illustration on page 1. This might help me get over my fear of the first page. Ah! This illustration is going to blitz by pretty quickly because I ended up doing a different project, which you'll see shortly, and it turns out that I just wasn't super satisfied with how this first illustration came out. I have to say that drawing things in a cartoony style is something that I'm not super comfortable with. So much of my work is based on an element of realism that this is way out of my comfort zone. And even though I think I did overall well, it doesn't look like I improved a whole lot from the original drawing, at least not to my estimation. I do think that there was actually something that I lost in the posture. There was like a sense of urgency from the original doodle that just didn't translate properly. She just looks too calm, I don't know. It was nice to color this illustration just to give it a little bit more life, and I did enjoy using the render sketchbook. I was flipping the page constantly while I was working on this just to see what it looked like on the other side, and sure enough, it didn't bleed through. But I don't know, this was just my first attempt, and even though it was a decent one, I don't think it was my best effort. You can tell that by the end of this, my coloring got just a little bit sloppy because my heart wasn't in it anymore. But I still plowed through to the end. It was important for me to finish what I started. Okay, time to regroup. So I wasn't super satisfied with the drawing that I did, and maybe I could try recreating this on a larger scale. This is a giant sort of Strathmore drawing pad. I've had this for a really, really, really long time, and it's got like some cool patterns and things that I've made in here, some failed drawings. And there are some pages in here that are either completely blank or they have like indentations, which you could probably hardly see on camera, but it's just like from me pressing too hard with the pencil on the previous page. So I thought that I could use that as like a base to make a really cool mixed media piece where I collage the lady and the room that she's in. And since she had artwork on the walls, I thought that maybe those artworks could be of the other two drawings that I want to recreate. So the sun girl and the falling girl, I might try to attempt that again and hopefully achieve a much better effect. And it's going to be a very strange tone dissonant art piece because there are so many different kinds of things going on in it. Very dramatic artwork in the background, but then like a waving woman in the front. And I thought that that would actually be a really cool opportunity for me to get some collaging in and experiment with some of the random art supplies that I have stowed away in this room. I feel like a lot of the projects that I've been doing lately have been me using materials that have sort of fallen to the wayside, and this would be a good opportunity for me to continue that trend. So let's do it. So this project, because of how much is involved in it, ended up taking me, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours, which I don't think I anticipated when I began, but it was really good to just sort of sit down and think about all of the elements that I wanted to incorporate. And I began just by sketching out the entire scene as I wanted it depicted on the final piece. So I'm kind of new to color erase pencils. I see a lot of artists using them, and I had a good deal of success sketching on this sheet of paper, but less so when I was doing the previous drawing in the render sketchbook. I think it may just be because of the quality of the paper in that sketchbook is really glossy, so it didn't erase very well, but I had a lot more success when I was creating the image for this particular piece, and it gave me an opportunity to, again, try a more cartoony style. You can see that the lady looks a lot different than her original counterpart. Her head is quite large, which makes her look almost like a caricature, but I think she turned out really cute, and I really wanted to give her a different hairstyle. In the original art piece from when I was age 6, she just had kind of like hair falling down in like a bob beside her head, and I didn't think that looked very flattering, so I wanted to give her this big hairdo of like natural curls. And I also thought about adding a headband so that I can like tie her outfit together a little bit better. I also decided to finalize the idea and make that unidentified object in the room an actual papasan chair because I'm quite fond of them. I think they're quirky and they're comfortable. I've always wanted one of those, so I was like, this lady is swanky and she has a cool room with art on the walls and a comfy papasan chair. So at this point, I just began taking big sheets of tracing paper and tracing over all the individual elements for this piece. I wanted to use my tracing paper as a transfer sheet with either chalk or watercolor pencils. There are all sorts of things that you can use to make transfers, but I wanted to transfer each individual item to the various sheets of paper. And that meant that I had to open up my cabinet and pull out my giant stack of scrap paper, and I have like pieces of cutout magazines and all sorts of things that I could use as texture and for the various different elements in this scene. You could just sort of see me sorting through all of my folders here. I was ripping out a lot of like cool textures and patterns from magazines for a while, and my stash is still quite large, so I had plenty to work from. So the carpet in the original piece was in black, but I didn't have any black construction paper. And this is like scrapbooking construction paper, so it's like a little bit better quality. I ended up doing that carpet in a navy blue instead. And then I just began tracing and cutting out all of the different elements. I started with the lady herself, with her head and her hand, all of the skin tone elements that I was going to add. And then I had like this book, it's a sticker book really, that has all of these really cool pattern pages on it, and I chose one of those that had like this bright green sort of like tropical forest scene on it, and I used that for the sweater that I wanted her to wear, and I also used it to make her a matching headband so that she's very color coordinated. Here you can see me pulling something from a magazine page that had wood grain on it. I thought that was cool for like the base of the chair. And as I go, I kind of arrange things onto the actual sheet itself just to make sure that they fit and they're the right size and that my cutting was accurate enough. Moving on to some of the features of the face, the lips, the eyelids. I decided not to bother with cutting out a separate element for the nose. I was going to enhance that a little bit later using alcohol markers. I did attempt sketching out a little bit of the parts of her face that I thought would be in shadow, just in case I wanted to cut out something. I had a lighter brown piece of paper, but I didn't end up using it. And then for her hair, I chose this Galaxy sheet. This like cool piece of craft paper that I had in Galaxy print. And it's funny to me because girl with galaxy hair is so overdone in the online art world now. It almost seems like kind of a trope, but the only reason I chose it was because I didn't want to make her hair the same color blue as the carpet, and because I didn't have any black, this was the closest thing I had. So it ended up looking really cool, but it was just kind of incidental based on the materials that I actually had because I didn't have any black construction paper. I also used it to cut out the color of her eyes, and I like that part actually because now she has very sparkly eyes. I glued a lot of the parts of the face together and then just sort of set them aside, but I knew I had to adhere all of the elements to this room in a specific order in order for everything to look right. So I started with the carpet, and I had traced out the spot on the carpet where I wanted that area rug to go, and I knew I was going to color that in. You could see me trying out at first some metallic markers that just did not work anymore, and then I just switched to Posca markers and went at it with those. So unfortunately, she lost her like fully metallic area rug, but it's okay. I added some silver elements, but I just wanted to try to get it as accurate to the original picture as possible, so I just copied some of the same colors. And I left it textured. I wasn't going to go over it with layers. I really wanted it to look like a woven rug, so I left that texture in there. lot of my cutting wasn't perfect, and I think that's okay. It doesn't have to be. This was just a fun little activity that I did on a Sunday afternoon. It was really cool to like get into this mindset that was familiar to me from back in my childhood, where I would just sort of like look at what I had around me and then use whatever I had in order to create a scene. And then, as you can see in the background on the wallpaper, I decided to mimic that doodle page with all the lines. The original image just had diagonal parallel lines in green going across the wall as like her wallpaper, but I was like, ooh, this is giving me an opportunity. So I decided to do those line sheets and make that her like swanky wallpaper. I think it turned out really cool. I waited until after sunset to do this part because if you saw in the previous little clip there, the sun was sort of creeping across my workstation and it was just baking me in the afternoon, so I came back at night. Oh god, okay, so there's this part here where you can see me kind of like scratching off part of the paper above her top lip, and it's because when I was using the alcohol markers to shade her face, I didn't realize that they would go on and while they were wet they would look super dark, so I thought that I goofed up the shading. Well, I didn't, and then I ended up scratching it off. So unfortunately now it just kind of looks like she has a hairy upper lip, but only on one side. The things that you learn when you do this kind of stuff, I swear. So I decided to make the frames of the pictures out of more construction paper, but I was actually going to draw the images themselves on the piece of paper that I was working on. I thought that would be best because I didn't want to have to cut out another set of white paper just to put in the center. I had enough going for it anyway. There was no reason why I couldn't just use the work surface that I had in front of me. And I began with the sun girl, who I made a little bit more thick. I gave her some hips, and I gave her bigger hair, and I definitely put it in color. It was important to me that I wanted to translate some of those art pieces into color, because the originals were just these black and white line drawings. I think it turned out overall pretty cool, but I might still try to recreate the sun girl someday on a larger surface. And then when I moved on to the other art piece that's hanging on the opposite wall there, I chose Dangling Girl again, and I really didn't change it very much from the illustration that I did of my render sketchbook. In fact, I was inspired by the very same colors as that illustration, so I just repeated the colors, and I chose not to use a fine liner for this piece. I actually just like sort of colored in all of the elements without lining it, and I thought that that would make it look more of like a painting hanging on her wall. It did turn out okay, and I think it's more forgiving that it's so tiny, because it's just an element in this room and it doesn't really stand out. And then I just put in some extra details. I realized I had to fill in the shadows on that papasan chair and make it look like what it's supposed to look like. So you can see me putting the shading in on that cushion. And that was it. That's the end. Okay, here we go. First we have Exhibit A, done by 6-year-old me. And this is my recreation. This was so fun! I would say this is a vast improvement. It's definitely different from the things that I usually do, but man, I'm a fan! I am a little bit disappointed in what happened to her top lip. It looks like she may have gotten a scar there, but that's okay. She looks so cute. I'll have to like put a layer of Mod Podge or something over it so that it doesn't fall apart, but I'm so proud. I would hate for any of the hard work I've put in today to go to waste. This was so much fun. It turned out so much different than what I thought it was going to, and I still had a blast recreating artwork from my childhood and putting my new adult kind of twist on it. But it was really nice to set aside some time today to complete this project and to get my hands dirty with things like collage. I am so tickled, honestly, that this has sort of ignited the childhood flame inside of me, because I got to play with paper and paint markers and alcohol markers, all sorts of things on this project. It just gave me a lot of creative freedom and a sense of play that I don't often feel. Not to this degree, anyway. This is definitely on another level. I hope you've enjoyed my video this week. I'm sorry it was so informal. I just have so many other things on my mind. I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and until I see you next time, ciao everyone.